Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world tonight. It's Grant Cameron, and I have a special guest, Debz Buller, with me, and we are going to talk all things star teachers, ET, Shasta, whatever we can get in here. I think, Debz, you've been to my Zoom meetings, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I
And
loved the one with the Mount Shasta participants.
the Mount Shasta
That was
thing,
really
yeah.
great. Yeah.
Which is one of the questions I had to you. But maybe first of all, give an intro to people who may not know who you are, and maybe a little bit about how you and I met up maybe a week ago with Costa and the whole event with the Area 51 thing. So give people a
Okay.
background as to why we may be doing this broadcast today rather than some other day.
Yeah. Well, very cool. And thank you once again for doing this before this event happens. I really appreciate it, Grant. Well, I'm Debz Shakti Buller. I go by Debz Shakti. Usually that's my yogic name, is Shakti. And I came into this world as a multidimensional worker, and have had constant ET and other light being contacts since my earliest memories. The earliest memory that I have without going, into a regression is age 3. And I thought that's how people lived. I did not know that most people have maybe a more material view of the world. So, but I did learn that fairly quickly when I went to school. But I did have, I have overlay of life. I came in as a being who understands the quantum nature of what I call the infiniverse, because it's just too vast to explain. And there's even the multiverse doesn't explain it to me. But I actually had other families, especially one special family that overlaid mine. Even at age, 3, 4, I was talking incessantly to my other family, and my family just thought I was highly imaginative, and they played along with it kind of until I went to Catholic school, and that got shut down really quickly. But the things that I was sharing with my physical family from my other family, my overlay, what I call my overlay family, were things that a 3 and 4 and 5-year-old child had no access to. And we, I grew up in the late 50s, early 60s, in that period when I was a small child, preschool. And so there was very little TV. In fact, we didn't watch television other than, about an hour a night, if we were allowed to do that. And so my mom and dad were very into music. So there was music played in the house all the time, and books, lots of reading. So that was, we didn't talk about the things that I was talking to them about, that I had shared, been interacting with or I'd just be sitting and talking to my other family, and we'd be talking about things that my family had no clue about what it was. We're talking about science and space and, consciousness and the nature of life. And so it was pretty wild. But anyway, I could give you thousands and thousands and thousands of examples of contact experience, physical, telepathic, intuitive, all of that. We can do that in the rabbit hole sometime, because that's really the venue where you do highlight people's experiences. I think what is really important here is to talk about how a relationship has grown over the years, over the decades, with these beings. And there is a group entity who has identified itself, because I asked for a label, as the Star Teachers. And they, throughout my life, I've come up through academic world, through the corporate world, but I lived a dual life. At 13, I became a yogi. I started teaching at 15. Martial arts, all these things that are deeply spiritual, deeply philosophical, and even as a child, was people would bring their sick dog to me to hold because it would feel better afterwards, or grandma would feel better. So energy worker, all of that. But on the other side of the coin, I was, my parents were very strict and wanted to maximize the intellect that I came into the world with as well. And so, grade A student, um, and for the most part, did excellent in school, loved science, but I was drawn to clinical psychology. And so when I went to college, that's what I studied, and eventually became involved in the department with one of the preeminent at the time clinical psychologists, who was a great author as well. And our focus was on hypnosis and biofeedback. So I quickly learned about hypnosis. It kind of paralleled my experiences with meditation, only it was something that I felt I could guide other people into, to get them into that brainwave state and then help them access, memories, or even overwrite things so that they could get better if they were feeling bad or whatever. So fast forward through that experience, I quickly realized that I was only giving people a tiny portion of what I could offer in a session, staying in the clinical realm though, because there is so much structure and it's very rigid. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, you did not talk about energy or, oh gosh, it was even hard to talk about past lives back then. But, I would do past life regressions with people, and after a tiny bit, they were going all over the place into, they were going into the future. They were going into what you and I know as non-local conscious awareness. And, we know now that life is a non-local reality and that we're all consciousness and we can tap into that at any time. So I broke away from that and started doing this kind of this multiple modality work on the side. It's a big blend of whatever the person needs, but it always entails tapping into that person's inner self, whether it's through quantum hypnosis or channeling. Most people would rather hear me channel the information to them than hear it from themselves, although that's changing a little bit over the years. So quickly found that no matter who was identifying to this person that I was channeling, it might be grandma, it might be Winston Churchill, it might be, an ascended master. It quickly became apparent to me that really who I was channeling were higher versions of that person's self, because as humans, we don't trust our inner voice, and we are outward referring. And so we like to sit with a person who we think has more information than we do to get advice from, basically. And so, I always tell people, this isn't me. This information is really, it's you talking to yourself. There's a lot of resistance to that statement, but I'm going to put it out there. And the reason why I bring that up is that about 3.5 years ago, I was in a session with a very difficult case. It was the person was dying, had very terrible physical ailments that were supposedly incurable, had gone through every other, aspect of healing in the allopathic world and the psychiatric world. They were blended with emotional problems and so forth too, but they were very dire physical problems. This person was very conservative, was not into any of the woo-woo stuff. That's what she told me when she first walked into my healing space. And, but she was open because she was desperate. So, we did some stuff, and then I put her on my massage table and started to do energy work with her, and immediately the ceiling opened up in my office, and I saw a huge craft above. That space just wasn't, we just were not in that space anymore. And these tall, translucent, kind of blue, whitish beings, humanoid, bipedal, but featureless. They were kind of like liquid glass, is how I explain it. 7 to 8 feet tall, but you could see kind of into them, and they had these beautiful lights that were moving all up and down them, like kind of like our bloodstream would look if we were looking at our circulatory system, but it was made of light. Colors I've never seen before in my physical experience. And they just kind of took over the session. They started working on this woman in all sorts of ways. And one literally came behind me. I was standing at her head. One came behind me and literally slipped my body on like a glove and started doing all sorts of things with my body. Because I'm a tactile, visual human being, I think that being realized this is the way she's going to learn this new concept is by actually doing it. So they had me do some things, and it was quite profound. And at the end of the session, she literally sat up after it all came back to reality. I was kind of just, flowing with it like I always do, and so grateful and feeling love. And when she came out of it and sat up, we're having our follow-up, and I said, "How do you feel?" And she said, "I feel perfect and whole, and I feel well. I don't feel any sickness at all." And, I could tell her whole vision had changed. Her body had changed, actually. And I said, "Is there anything else you want to share?" And she said, "Well, am I crazy, or did the ceiling open up and there was a huge spacecraft above our heads, and there were these tall beings?" She described them precisely the way I saw them. And I said, "That's exactly what I saw." And she said, "I don't understand." And I said, "Well, I think it took you to having to have this horrible ailment and everything, and coming to this critical point before you were allowing yourself to open your awareness up to a higher level of consciousness where now you are." Because she just kept saying, "I understand what the world is about. I understand what life is about now. I saw it all." She just saw it all in a moment. You know how that is when a person wakes up. And I said, "It took you having to go through that to get there. That was your way of doing it. It happens sometimes." And so I won't go on with the story other than to tell you that she was 100% well when she went back to her doctor's appointment. She was completely well, and she's still completely well. And she's one of the biggest fans, if you will, of these beings. So from that point onward, they never really left. They were, I've channeled lots of wonderful beings. I've always had contact, like I said, physical and otherwise, with especially ET beings. But these guys they're like stuck to me like glue now. And so I kept asking for their help in the sessions. And finally, a lot of people said, "Well, I was giving a workshop one time where I was just doing a group channeling and letting them talk. And finally, a lot of the people said, 'Who are you? How do we talk to you? We want to address you.' And they said, 'Well, we are evolved past a need for labels. We have evolved past the need for an ego personality, actually. And so we don't use labels anymore because we are a group entity, but we sense your need to address with a name, so you can call us the teachers or the star teachers.' And so that name stuck. The name has, I believe, a compelling energy to it because people seem to relate to it very well. So they have been extremely insistent over the last 3.5 years. Their message it's very simple, but it keeps building and building and building. And they say that they are here as a higher level version of ourselves, as the version of ourselves that have already achieved this leap from the third density earth reality, where we have duality and karmic patterning and all of the negative aspects. They say that we have achieved that. We've leapt above that. We've ascended, however you want to put it, and have achieved the level of existence that they're on now, which is a very harmonious, cohesive, happy, abundant life where they are liberated, where they can, you know, spend their time creating and exploring the more positive aspects of creation and helping others. So that's also hard for people to understand. A lot of people resist that. They're like, well, how does that work? And I said, I don't know how it works. I understand a lot about quantum physics. I'm a big student, but what they're saying is they would not be speaking to us now, giving us the messages they're giving us, had we not achieved overcoming all the things that we're trying to overcome right now and moved up in our frequency and sustained it, because they are us at that level. They call us their future ancestors, and I call them our future ancestors. So we are linked. They are not above us in any way. They always are adamant about that. They are not, they don't want to be deified. They don't want to be put on a pedestal. They're just literally us talking to ourselves from a different layer of reality to encourage us to keep moving forward, because they keep saying, you've already done it. Now you just need to remember that you've already done it and make it so with your feeling state. And so that's a whole other part of the message, but I'll stop there just so in case you have questions.
Yeah, you raise a lot of things for people. Like a lot of people would probably give you the same questions that you've already gotten, but make a distinction between because people say, well, are these ETs, are they spiritual beings? Can you sort of explain what your concept is? What's going on in that world? Is it all one thing? Are they just representing themselves as ETs, or are, because you've talked to a lot of different beings, so you would sort of
Yes.
understand. And you talk about this unified, you know, beyond the ego thing, which I think you should maybe talk a little bit more about.
Sure, absolutely. Well, here's my grasp of it, Grant, and I'm still scratching the surface on it, but basically you could call anything ET depending on what layer of reality it's coming from, you know, so where it exists in the communication between the two of you. I mean, I could be talking to my dog right now, and I know it's not extraterrestrial. It's right here. It's physical, but I know that it understands me. But these beings do not live in the physical earth plane now. However, they said they did. They said they were us. And they're early on, they said, because I asked for that explanation too, and I go, where are you from? And they said everywhere. But we are, we evolved to this stage from where you are at your stage as an earth person. But we also, as we became more galactically inclined, you know, started moving forward into exploring the rest of the cosmos and everything, and joining the cosmic neighborhood, as you will. We interspersed with and interrelated with other beings. And so we are an amalgam of many beings. And we no longer live on a physical planet, although we can manifest in physical form if we need to or want to. It's just up to us. They're at a more of a, what they call the crystalline light body phase of evolvement. And they say they are nowhere near the top of the food chain, but they are our next big step up the food chain. So I don't know if that helps to explain that or not, but so to me, that means that they are extraterrestrial. They do not live on our planet, but they are enmeshed with our planet because they are us on a different layer. It's really hard to explain. Yeah. But I will also say that the line is being very blurred for me at this time as to what are ETs, angels, ascended masters, light beings. Ultra terrestrial, I don't really care. If it's intelligence that's speaking, and it's speaking something that resonates as the truth, then I don't really want to put a label on it. I am trying to move past the label stage myself. And so becoming more open to just listening to the information and receiving the information rather than the trying to explain what it is and where it comes from. That's just where I am. I know there are a lot of people who really want to identify it because they still have attachments to old constructs that maybe they've been programmed by, religions or cultural mores or whatever. We have to know who you are because if you're not quite like us, then we probably are afraid of you, or we have to gain trust with you, right? So, but that's not what we're moving toward. And they say we're moving very quickly towards the point of that achievement that I spoke about, that this year is the pinnacle year for us. Up till now, most beings that I have channeled have never given dates, or like, I'm not a prognosticator. I don't say, people will come to me and say, well, what about my future? Like, what about next year? Can I see myself, winning $1 million on this? I'm like, that doesn't work. You don't pinpoint dates because everything is non-local and everything is affected constantly by each person's free will choices. So every time you make a choice, you create one or more new universes. And in each one of those universes, you're doing something slightly different or greatly different. So, but what we can say is that probabilities, we can look at the probabilities of something happening in relation to where you are right now and say, this is a good probability if you keep going on this same trajectory, and everyone else around you does too, right? So the big answer is, don't ever listen to somebody who gives exact dates or anything, but what they're saying now is so compelling. They're saying the energy has cohered enough, and that we have come to the 100th monkey stage, if you will, of our development, where there's enough critical mass of intelligent human beings and the rest of the life on this planet who want to move higher up in frequency and sustain that higher frequency and not be in this slow moving kind of low level experiment anymore. And once we've done that, then they say the possibilities are extremely good. And it's this year that there will be a mass awakening of people who will suddenly understand a lot of this and start to get curious and start to make the changes they need to do so that we can keep building up towards that, ascension process. So does that help at all?
Yeah, somebody might ask the question, I mean, you're saying that we are on the level, or you are on the level of this sort of awakening, because people would bring up the fact that, one of the things I always look at is separation versus oneness, where you see the division in the American society between political forces and things like that, where a lot of people would think that it's actually going the other way, that we're actually moving away from this understanding that maybe you understand. And that's one of the other things maybe you can discuss. The reason I sort of look at you actually pointed out that people think that you sort of have contact, where I haven't really had the contact, but if I can find someone like you who has the contact, then I say, well, let's, if I can't make the contact, I go through you to sort of get the question that you're sort of tapped in. So can you go into this thing about, are you tapped in? Is the entire society tapped in? This 100th monkey, is it this idea that you only need maybe 10% of people to flip the scenario, or how do you explain that?
Right. The best way we would like to explain it to all of you at this point is that you all are tapped in, but some of you are still attached to the lower level physical reality experiment that you put yourselves into here, where you are veiled from the knowledge that you are already tapped in. And so what we are here to do is to talk through, if you will, certain people who have an energy that is relevant to everyday people, to people who will see a person such as our partner and just relate, have a rapport, and hear the message. as the words are spoken, just like they're being spoken now to you, there is so much more going on than verbal information coming into your ears. That verbal information that is coming through her mouth contains the carrier wave of vast amounts of energy information that is more the waveform. It is the electro information waveform that is the more attached to what you would call your right brain function, as opposed to the atomic molecular electromagnetic light reality form that is your physical reality. This information is coming through her voice on that carrier wave, and it is affecting every part of your being. Anyone who is listening to this, they're being affected in that way. And so we can reach so many people through a relatable vocal source. That's really her part. But we will tell you, there are hundreds of thousands of humans on the planet now who are doing this, and not just with us, but with many other groups, because that is the agenda now. That is the program, if you will, that has been agreed upon by the collective, that most of the human race is yearning for and finally tiring of, being in this playground, and they want to move to another. And so we're merely here to turn on the switches, if you will. So you maintain that you don't have contact, but you are having contact in this moment, viable contact, and you will feel the difference, not just in your mental reaction to it, but into your physical functions are being changed. In other words, there are upgrades that are happening. There are activations of latent DNA that are happening every time you listen to one of the messages. And it's all parsed out in the way, it's like a prescription, and it's coming to humanity in the best way so that it's easy, it's not harmful, it's not terrifying. It is like you just think you're evolving, and you are, but you're evolving with our help because you helped us evolve by doing this. Does that make more sense?
Yes. Can I ask the Star Teachers, if people were to try to get a better signal, because to me it looks like it's a signal noise thing, how would people reduce the noise to get a better signal in terms of getting the information that they require?
That's a wonderful question, and you are doing so much good work in doing your research with the contact modalities, for instance. These contact modalities, or what people would call their means to get there, get to the samadhi state, or get to the bliss state, or get to the heightened awareness state. These are all major ways of, and excellent ways of tuning into the signal. Our partner is able to tune into us, or we were able to pair with her because she's led a lifetime of that kind of work. She has, she does spiritual practices, she practices her yoga, she meditates all the time. She loves music, which is our favorite way to tap into someone who is resistant to the other modalities. In fact, she is married to a professional musician. So music is in the house all the time. Dance, walking, hiking, being in nature, many things. But what we would like to explain to you and your audience is that there is a concept in your quantum physics science called conditioned space. Do you understand what conditioned space is?
No. Can you explain that for the people?
We'll explain it for everyone. Conditioned space is all around you. We'll use as an example a 2,000-year-old cathedral. Even if you are not a person of the faith that built that cathedral, often if you've ever gone traveling and you walk into a place like that, you are instantly struck by the peace, or a sense of love, or a sense of awe, perhaps. Not just by the architecture, but there is an energy there. And that is because people have gathered for 2,000 years in that cathedral. to worship, to lift themselves up, to try to make contact, if you will, with a higher level being they call God, right? So you may have had that experience, some of you, by going to a sacred uh, space that indigenous peoples have used for eons, such as Mount Shasta or Sedona, Arizona, or Mount Fujiyama, or places like that, where there have been people doing something of a spiritual nature or a deep introspective nature. Even you can even go into a national park in your own country and be in the forest there where other people have been there and had a sense of awe and wonder. You're going to have a sense of awe and wonder anyway, but if there have been thousands and thousands of people doing that before you, that energy becomes congealed there. It's like building a Faraday cage around your own personal energy field, but in a larger sense. And so when you are talking about contact work, for instance, and you gather in groups or even as an individual, it's helpful to do it in the same location, and by doing processes that get you out of your left brain analytical functions and into the right brain flow function. All right. So again, meditation, chanting, drumming, even sharing similar stories where you're lifting yourselves up. And this is how you'll know you're doing it. You're lifting yourself up into a feeling state that is higher and lighter and more beautiful than your normal everyday beta state. Okay. You talk about your brainwave states, beta, everyday state, where you're just kind of you're functioning, you're doing your job, you're driving a car. Alpha, light meditation, getting lost in a book, listening to good music, etc. Theta is a beautiful start to the gold standard of states, where you go into a deep meditative state, but you're highly focused and consciously aware of what you're doing. And this feeling state usually brings on a state of expanded love, happiness, peacefulness, oneness. And then you can go on, into, the higher states where, there's delta, where you go to deep sleep. There's gamma and so forth. There are many, many layers, just like the frequencies we're talking about. But if you can get yourself into a theta state, some people do it with sound, with tones. Tones are great. The sound technology is one of our favorites. That's why we love music. But tones, binaural beats, you all are exploring all kinds of things like that. These are ways to help yourselves, especially if you feel like you're not that kind of person, not wired that way. You are, but you have a different contact language, if you will, than your neighbor, perhaps. And so it's a fun exploration to try all these things out, but continue to try them in the same space and over a good amount of time to see what happens. Does that help?
Yes. Question, you mentioned music. I have a friend in England who is connected to one of the biggest rock bands of all times. Two questions related to that. She talks about frequency. Can you talk about music and frequency? Are the star teachers or others using musicians to get music or the message across? And this particular woman had two encounters. One was with herself and her husband. One was with a child. Why are people seeing UFOs? What does that mean? And how are the star teachers or others using music to raise the, I guess, the frequency or the vibration of the earth?
Right. Well, you're talking about several different parts or sub-agendas of a bigger agenda, which is to help you all ascend, and birth this new era, this new way of living. But music is our favorite because the science, the technology of sound is hardwired into the human body as well as to the collective conscious. Sound is something that affects everything. You now have studies out there that show that different words literally affect the molecular structure of water. And your body is made up almost all of water. Your cells are made of water. Your earth, your planet is mostly water, you know, so sound is the easiest way for us to get this other information that would be somewhat difficult for you to absorb into your system, if you will. That's why we're using this verbal information today. But it would come to you just in the same way if you were listening to a special piece of music, or someone hitting a chime, or someone chanting a mantra. It doesn't matter, it's just a process. But as far as your exploration of going into music and why so many musicians have contact experiences, see UFOs and so forth, you're right on the money. That's why, because sound is our favorite technology to get that other information safely into the human system. You know, we could just shower it on you and you'd burn your systems out. Music helps to rewire the circuitry, if you will. Okay. And music and frequency, well, they're the same thing. They're different aspects of the same thing. Anyone who is playing music on any instrument or using the vocal cords as their instrument is playing with frequencies. You know, each note is a different frequency. And each frequency, you know, as tiny as they can be, as slightly different as they can be, carries different information. It's just all information. But it's a pleasing way to get that information into your systems. The other thing that is unique about humans is that once they hear a sound, a sentence, but especially once they hear music that they can relate to, it's with them always. You sometimes probably fall asleep hearing music in your head and wake up in dreams even hearing a soundtrack. A lot of people do. Or you have what you call an earworm all day long. Pay attention to that. Even if it's a song you don't like, even if it's music that's not your favorite, because there's some kind of information coming in trying to get your attention. Okay, so this, the woman that you're speaking of course, she's had way more experiences than she knows, but she's slowly coming into the realization of that, just as many humans are. Your question about why do people see UFOs is simply because it's part of the agenda to help ramp up the awareness of the common human being. And we don't want to say the word common as a derogatory term, but as, you know, at the level that most human beings have been at the last 100 years or so, that's the easiest way to get you to notice something different. This information is coming into you always. And it's just, you know, it's like, well, like radio frequencies. Millions of radio frequencies all the time going right through you. And yet, do you know that they are? You don't feel them. Most of the time, you don't hear them unless you tune in a device to help you listen to them. Well, that's what's happening. But music and the sightings of UFOs, which are now changing rapidly. Most people were seeing at first flying saucers. You can even see that in some of your ancient drawings, cave drawings even, and paintings and sculptures. You see flying saucers or spaceships. It's a collective consciousness archetype that is, it's a wake-up mechanism. People see that. If they see it in the sky or they see it land in their field, they instantly know this is not from here. And they either get curious or hopefully not afraid, but they still, that's a seed that's planted. They've seen something that is not there, usually. And it wakes them up and they start to go on their journey. What we're trying to do now is move past that, where you've seen what the usual flying saucers look like back when you were a child, if you look back in history, and then they became more beautiful, more elegant, more sleek. Um, and then slowly we began to let you have the awareness that these are not just machines, these are not vehicles, these are conscious, their consciousness blended with the the vehicle. But really now what most people are seeing are lights, orbs, beings in form, maybe even beings. Well, there are many of us who walk around looking just like you at times, just to put that energy out there and interact with you on different levels, whatever you need. But it's changing over time slowly so that people aren't afraid. You're Hollywood, driven by the powers that wish to stay in power, have done a really good job about making those, for the most part, scary things to look at. But that agenda is no longer valid, and people are just looking at it as, on the low end of it, entertainment. On the high end of it, they're like, that's not my experience at all, because I'm having a personal experience with, for instance, a light in the sky. I go outside and look in the stars, and I ask, is there someone there I can associate with? And immediately you get a light in the sky that's moving in front of you, or you get one that flashes, and you can even interact with them if you stay in that high sense of non-fear and high love, and the expectation that you're going to get exactly what you need, and it will signal you in the way that you need it to signal. Or other things, you may have lights on the ground, you may have, again, well, it's just an infinite amount of different kinds of contact. But you asked about music and frequency, and that's why we use music most often, because it is so universal on your planet.
Okay. An important question for me, it relates to, you mentioned before, DNA. Can I ask the star teachers, is Debz relay channeling or trance channeling? And I want to ask about DNA. We talk about upgrading of DNA. There's one theory that when a trance channeler is channeling, the DNA actually changes to the DNA of the being that is actually doing the speaking. Is that true?
It is true to a point. It doesn't change all the way, or she would not appear to you in the same form that she's appearing to you now. So it is an intermingling, a merging, if you will. But to be able to hold the frequency, to hold the capacity for that frequency, that the verbal information is coming through her, as well as the other information, her part of her DNA has in fact changed. And there have been tests on other beings who are able to channel like this, and it does show some DNA anomalies while they're channeling. Also, the brainwave function is completely different. You will see, if you were to put your test equipment to her brain, you would see that both hemispheres of the brain are completely coherent, but the right brain is lit up in a different way than it usually is, and the left brain is lit up in a different way than it usually is, but they are both working equally well. So one is keeping her human body functioning and able to relate as a human with you. The other is our function, which is flowing through her and now flowing into you. So testing could be done. You have, your people have the ability to perform these tests right now and prove this. And it has been done on other people. But yes, that is why often when we speak through her, she doesn't remember anything. It's not that she goes anywhere. It's that she is us on a different level. And once we kind of move out of her field a little bit and allow her to be her more unique human present self, she doesn't remember the other part. So that's a rudimentary explanation of how that works.
Interesting. When you're upgrading DNA, what exactly is this going? You hear a lot about this upgrading people's DNA. What
Mhm.
exactly is going on here?
Well, on a lower level of explanation, what we're trying to do, what we are doing, is allowing people to be able to hold capacity for the higher levels of frequency in their bodies. All of the DNA that your scientists have labeled junk DNA is absolutely, that's a big lie. It is latent DNA. It is waiting for the time when everything is ripe, and then those functions will start coming in. So for want of a better explanation, if you're aware of what the yogis call siddhis, you know, special powers or enhanced sensory activity or abilities, that's what's happening. But for the most part, if we were to just give you the gift of being like us in one fell swoop, your physical body would die. It wouldn't be able to handle that much information or that much of the higher frequency without a lot of upgrading of the physical material that makes up your body. And so it's think about enhancing the circuitry, if you will. All right. And there could be tests done on this as well. You know, choosing a control group of subjects who are just starting to wake up and following them over a course of, you know, weeks, months, years of time as they progress on their awakening, you can see, you would be able to see with what you have in your technology now that there is something else going on in their body, in their molecular structure, and in their DNA, what is being now active as opposed to latent. So, you know, it will be very soon that your scientists will start to making this public, because the scientists are waking up as well, and they're no longer going to play this shut up and be quiet about what you found to keep your job role anymore. They just can't.
Has Debs done any experiments with scientists yet in terms of this kind of stuff?
Not at all.
I don't know. Maybe we can do that. About a month ago, there was an announcement made that there was, I guess it's more than a month ago, that there was going to be a raid on Area 51, and I believe the STAR teachers got involved. Can you basically outline what has happened and what the advice the STAR teachers have for the world in terms of this sort of event that has taken the media and the UFO community sort of grabbed their attention?
Absolutely. Well, it was all part of it was not it wasn't just a ludicrous joke. It was all part of a plan, an agenda, and people kind of played along with it unwittingly, which, you know, we're kind of sneaky that way sometimes. But when it's time, it's time. And so this young fellow by the name of Maddie decided to make a joke on social media about, let's all get together on this date and storm Area 51 and free them aliens, was what it was. And people, it struck a chord in people. It was funny. I mean, he made it as a joke. He even said, you know, something to the effect in the headline that it was a joke. It was for fun, but millions of people have been interested. You know, if nothing more than, I just want to jump on the bandwagon of whatever this is, and just to see if it plays out, because it's so crazy. And, you know, for most of your audience knows what Area 51 is. They know that it is an area that is highly secret. It is, you know, ludicrous to think about breaking in, as even if it were a million people all at once, they still, you know, they have weaponry and so forth to stop the masses from getting in there. But there's no reason to do it other than we use that particular place because it is, again, it's an archetypical symbol of what is going on in your world. People are tired of being lied to and used and enslaved and kept in a certain level of of existence when they know that there are a small number of people on this planet who have all the technology to bring you right up to the level of civilization where we live, actually, you know, to take you to that next step. Free energy, for instance, abundance for everyone, and so forth. And so they're tired of the lie. And that's why this caught the imagination of so many people. That's why so many people are interested in at least watching what happens. Will there be a few people who actually try that? Maybe. We hope not, because that's just, that would be a low vibration reaction to this. But we want to make it known to you that this was no joke, and that the people who are, you know, it became very quickly apparent to this young fellow, because he got taken off of social media for it, because it was dangerous. Became quickly apparent to him, hey, something's happening here that's bigger than what I originally thought, and I think I'll turn it into something, because people are interested, let's turn it into something more. So he started pairing up with people to try to make it into a kind of a cool music event, with a party nature. But there are many, many, many groups who started saying, well, we want to make contact out there at this thing, and we want to, there's some, you know, why not? Let's all go and do a sit-in even in front of the gates. They can't hurt us there, but we want to let them know that we know that they can't cover it up anymore. And so how our partner Debz and her friends got involved in all of this is that one day her friend Costa was conferring with the star teachers and was asking many questions just across the board about lots of things, and came up with a question about, what about this Area 51 thing? He has a sensitive heart. He was worried that people were going to get hurt. And he said, how can we divert them from getting hurt and doing this crazy thing? And the teachers, we came through and said, this is, you know, exactly what we told you. This is part of a bigger agenda. It is going to be turned into something more that can be used for the good. And it's going to have an energetic effect on your society, much like your Woodstock did, much like your Live Aid did, where people from all over the world become quickly aware of something and want to be involved in some way. And, you know, that was the answer. And he took the ball and ran with it and said, I think I'm the person who's supposed to do this, and came up with the Woodstock of ET Contact Worldwide Meditation Event, which is at this moment not affiliated with what has become termed Alien Stock, this music festival out in the desert by Area 51 in Rachel, Nevada, but it is concurrent with it. And the program that we are helping them to facilitate is to have, from September 20th through the 22nd, have people meditate as much as possible, singularly or in groups, on the Area 51 site. Start there, and then get into that heightened love state, that frequency, and then send that out in waves all around the world, enveloping the world, literally integrating the world in that conditioned space, if you will. Okay, so in addition to that, we have now added to that kind of generalized program 3 different times over that weekend, one for each day, where we will be live on Zoom hosting a guided coherency meditation for anyone who wants to listen, or anyone later on who wants to listen, because this is going to be an ongoing thing. This is a building thing for the planet, to not just learn how to come up into that love frequency, that highest state of feeling where you can create miracles, but then we will also be providing these upgrades, these activations, these integrations, and each day of that event will be building from the last. Even if you only listen to the last day, for instance, don't listen to the other two, you'll get all of that as a package, and it will be still safe for you. But that's the general premise of it, is to bring the Earth into its own conditioned space and then help the planet heal and ascend as one.
Will Debz be providing the times when, if people wanted to link into this event, there where we can sort of put it in the description under this interview, where people can link in, and is it like a 1 hour event, or?
Yes, it's yes, that's what we're striving for, is that they're already set. There is Costa and Hollis have the etletstalk.com webpage, and there is a specific sub-page on their website, which I think he gave you in his interview, what you can list down below. But there's also a special Facebook group called the Woodstock of ET Contact that anyone can join. And there is, within that group, there is an event, and the event is over the 3 days, and the dates and times are listed there. And very soon the Zoom links will be there. They didn't want to post them right away because it would be maybe a little too confusing, but the Zoom links will be there as well on that event page and on the ET Let's Talk contact page as well. So what seemed to be an impossible task for this small group of people who got all revved up about this and wanted to make it happen, is that it is spreading like wildfire, thanks to people like you all over the world via the internet and radio and television and word of mouth. It is now going to be translated into many languages. It truly is a worldwide event. We have assured them, you do this. You don't have to stress about it. You don't have to overwork yourself. This is just like your Woodstock. It started out as a small thing, and all of a sudden it became organic because it is placed in the collective consciousness of your humanity, of your planet, and people's switches have been turned on. So they're excited about it, and they're going to do it. Even the people who you would not think would relate to meditation or ETs or anything like that, there is a longing for the truth, or they would not be interested in this original Storm Area 51 event. Their chime has been rung, and they are receptive, and we are here to knock on the door and say hello. And once we do, you can't go backwards. You just don't. That's how it's been done millions of times in other civilizations. It's happening now on your world. And we thank you for being receptive to it.
Beautiful. We will do what we can to promote the event, and I think it will encourage people and lift the sort of the vibration of the earth. About a month ago, I was at Mount Shasta, and I've heard since that the Star Teachers may have been involved in that event. You were there was people, I believe, having a C5 account or an encounter in Wisconsin. Can you maybe talk about any involvement that the Star Teachers had in the Enrique Villanueva event in Mount Shasta?
Yes. Well, again, consciousness is non-local, and we can be in many places at once and in many hearts at once. We do have personal relationships with many of your participants. In fact, we dare say everyone who was there has had interaction with us, but they may not know that, have the term for that. The label is not important. The information, and more than anything, the feeling state is important. Maintaining that vibration is the most important. And so for those of you who were at Mount Shasta in that incredible event where everyone came together in probably the highest state of conscious awareness you've ever been in, or one of the highest, of course we were present, as were many other civilizations. There are special civilizations who tend to prevail there, to maintain that conditioned space on that mountain. That's why it feels so unique when you go there. But we were there, of course, helping in our own way. But it is not any more special or specialized than anyone else who is helping with this process. There's no sound.
Sorry. A couple more questions, and then we'll sort of end this. Can you give me, for the STAR teachers, can you give me the 4 key things that would be messages that you'd give to the earth in terms of what's important for people to remember?
Yes, indeed. And this is a message we've been trying to give at every event that we could have a relationship with people who are receptive to it. It started with our partners, local CE5 group. It went with her to a big event in Wisconsin early in June, where some of your Mount Shasta contemporaries also were, and really turned on some switches there at Big Arb, Wisconsin. Important message there. And then it moves through now the world. But the main message is there is nothing to fear, nothing at all. There is no death. There is only change of form. You are constantly evolving as part of the oneness of all that is, the vast and ever-growing, ever-evolving, non-local conscious awareness that is all of life. There's nothing to fear. There is nothing to hate. All of these negative emotions relate back to fear. We are trying to help you ascend past that to the state of oneness and love. The oneness and love state is the golden point, if you will, where you can manifest whatever it is you need to manifest and grow further to explore further. There is no end to this exploration. There is no final brass ring that you get. This is what life is about. But you have to be able to move past this density where there are certain constructs, for instance, duality, contrast, negativity, fear, pain, greed, suffering. These things are illusions. They are not your real reality. They are a construct, as if you were sitting and watching a movie or on a scary amusement park ride that you go for a thrill. Some people like to keep riding the ride because it's thrilling but scary. And other people say, I think I'm finished with that ride. I might even be finished with this amusement park. It's time to move forward and do something more constructive and more happiness inducing, more pleasing to us, and does no harm. Our key point is there is nothing to fear. There is only everything to love. You must allow yourself time and space, conditioning it with whatever makes you feel grateful, happy, peaceful, and loving. And you must do this as often as possible, whether that's singing, dancing, meditating, eating a clean diet, exercising, creating art, whatever it is. Being of service to others is key. We would like to say that as a key point. If you find yourself in these other states of being where you are feeling low, desperate, sad, we know it's hard, but it is the best antidote. Go do something for someone else that is in relation to what you're feeling. If you're feeling a sense of lack, go give somebody something that you have that they need. And lack will start to fall away. If you feel lonely, go be a friend to someone else. If you feel sad, go help lift someone else's spirits. And the other key is to break free of all of these bonds, this seeming prison of this low density planet in the third dimension, you must forgive. You must forgive on every level, everyone, from what they're doing. They're only exploring, just like you are, different states of being. This is nothing more than a psychodrama, a place for you to play out different scenarios. It is not your true reality. And so you must forgive everything and everyone that has ever caused you or anyone pain, especially yourself. The hardest thing. It's very hard to do that until you get that internal practice going. Whatever it is that you find that you can do, what you call your contact modalities. And we encourage you to do this individually and in groups. There is exponential power in groups. And so have no fear, be of service, be grateful, start to force yourself, if you have to, notice the good things in your life and express gratitude for them. And love, love, love. Love everything and everyone in your life as constantly as you can. This builds the conditioned space, the sanctuary around your own being, and starts to build it for the world. And that is our message to you.
Beautiful. One of the things the STAR teachers had talked about, maybe you can sort of elaborate, is living from the point of highest excitement, moving from one point of excitement to another.
Yes, indeed. And that is a very common theme in many channeled beings who are, at our level or above. One comes to mind, the group entity known as Bashar. It is a favorite teaching because it is the easiest thing to catch someone's imagination. It is your internal GPS system. If you have to make a choice between one or more things in your life, whether it's to take a new job or to eat a Snickers bar as opposed to an apple, you have to ask yourself what feels the most compelling, what feels the most exciting, what feels the most exciting. Our partner uses this scenario a lot. You leave this session today and you're hungry. You're driving down the street, you're hungry, and you notice a little convenience store, so you go in, you need something. And all you see in there that you could possibly stand to eat is they have a basket of apples and they have a display of Twinkies on the cash register stand. Everything else just doesn't appeal to you at all. And you don't know why the Twinkie appeals to you at all, because you know better than to eat something like that. But you can't choose. You're like, I know I'm supposed to have my highest excitement going here, but neither feels real exciting, but I'm hungry. You buy both. You go outside, sit on the bench, and you hold it in your hand. You sniff the apple. It smells delightful, spicy, sweet. It's beautiful to look at. You look at the Twinkie, and you laugh because there's a funny little man, a little cowboy Twinkie on the package with a lasso, and you remember it making you feel happy as a present when you were a child, for instance, but you haven't eaten one in years, and you keep holding it, but your attention keeps going to that package, and you don't really know why. So it's not this sense of, oh, I'm so excited about eating a Twinkie. It's what is catching your attention more than anything else. And so you decide to go on with the lesson. You open the Twinkie, you take a bite, and out of your field of vision comes a person walking by saying, are you really eating a Twinkie? Are you eating a Twinkie? I haven't seen anybody eat one in years. And you say, yeah, and you start to explain this practice because you're an open being and you have to laugh. And pretty soon they say, you know what? I've been having the same message and I've been needing to talk to someone about this for a long time. And let's do an experiment together. And here's my card. And it turns out to be some famous scientist who was just on the verge of wanting to do this, but needing some kind of other thing. And so what happens? You have coherency. You linked up in the waveform part of your reality rather than the particle form of your reality. Your energy systems linked up because you chose the Twinkie out of your semi-excitement. Does that make sense? So it doesn't have to be something huge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Final question, and then we'll maybe do this another time. In terms of experiences, you always hear that 40% of all experiencers claim at one point during their experience they knew the answer to everything in the universe. So my question to the star teachers is sort of a dual question. How much of what actually is reality do you know about, as opposed to humans who basically only know a little bit of what's going on? And in terms of, we know that there's no time and space, but what do the star teachers actually do all the time? Are they basically doing what you're doing right now, helping people, giving information? Is there such a thing as time and space? And so those two questions about what the star teachers are actually doing all the time, and this idea about how much of the answer to reality and what is going on do they actually have?
We would say that we have maybe 0.1% more of the information than you do at this point in your, what you would call time space. Okay. The universe, the infiniverse, is ever growing. And so one cannot put it in a container, a volume, if you will, which makes life very exciting. We want to learn more as well. And so that is our biggest pursuit, is the pursuit of more information. However, we are also, we are related to you, and we wish for you to come along for the ride. And so as you ascend into the level where we are, or above the level where you are, you will find yourself in what you would describe in your religious texts, for instance, as a paradise, because you're so free from all the negative constraints. Okay, you are absolutely liberated to be yourself. And so what people do when they are liberated is they start to create more, and they start to express more freely, and just delight in that existence. But over time you will start to realize, hey, there were some of you who didn't get it the first time, who were not ready to leave that other density experiment, because it's always going on. It's, nothing ever dies, nothing ever stops. It's all happening all at once, forever, all these frequencies, all these realities. And so then you become, to those who didn't take the bait, if you will, and rise up, you become to them what we are to you. Okay. But for the most part, what we're doing is learning, growing, exploring, creating. It's a beautiful existence. And it is in harmonic resonance with the oneness of the all that is. And so it's a vastly different experience than humans up to this point have had, although you are starting to have tastes of it when you come into coherency with your groups, for instance, in these human initiated contact events, or in your ecstatic music festivals, or things like that. Does that make sense to you?
Beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Except those are the questions I have for now. My partner Desta may have a question, because she does the same sort of work you do. So have you got any questions, Desta, or?
I wasn't prepared to ask questions. I guess I did have a question. I don't know if it was answered clearly or not about the trance. Grant was asking about the trance channel or relay channel. And I have a little bit different of a view on channeling, I think, than Grant does. So I guess his question was, I don't know, Grant, do you want to maybe say your question again and see if we get more clarity on it?
Well, it's the trance. My understanding, there are trance channelers who are relaying messages back and forth, and then there are channelers who, almost like multiple personality disorder people, where the entity that is on the other side, or however we want to describe it, actually takes over the body, and the personality changes, the voice changes, all this kind of stuff. So Mike, I guess the question is Debz a trance channeler or a relay channeler?
Okay, well, the label just is, it's it's irrelevant, because everyone does it differently at different levels of their capacity. What she is doing is expressing herself from a higher level in coherency with the higher selves of the people she's speaking with or who are listening to her. No matter if it's 10 years from now listening to this recording, you are all coming into coherency with us through her, which is her higher expression of self, the level where you all can meet anyway. So the types of channelers, again, that's an old paradigm, and it's going to fall away once you start experiencing it more and more with yourselves. But for the most part, she does not remember what is being said because she's speaking from that higher level. And once she comes back into more of the congealed physical form that she is expressing through in this reality, it's not able to express as eloquently or relatably as she is now. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, in a way. I think where we're going in this is, you mentioned sort of indirectly, you said there's other examples. There's one that I know of, and that is the example of Jay-Z Knight, who does the DNA test.
Mm-hmm.
But her DNA is completely different when she
yes.
channels Bashar, when she channels Ramtha, and when she's not.
Right.
So my question, I guess, would be, if we were to do a DNA test with Debz, would there be a significant enough difference in DNA where scientists would actually have to go, something actually is going on here?
Yes, you would see that. There is a different vibration in the human Jay-Z Knight and the pairing with the entity Ramtha than there is between our partner and ourselves. And there's no hierarchy here. That information is really good. But you might notice, if you've ever looked at or attended a Ramtha session, that Jay-Z Knight, her body literally changes visibly. She takes on about 15 to 20 pounds of water. She grows bigger to match the form of the entity Ramtha. Her DNA changes a lot, but it is not the same type of change. Let's say the different aspects they're not changing in the same way as the ones for a partner would be doing. So you could put these two humans together in a controlled environment and do the tests together with them, and you would see both are doing different things DNA wise, but their DNA is changed. Does that make sense?
Yes, because that is significant. I mean, if there is a second test, because the Jay-Z Knight, as far as I know, is the only one that's been done. And if you get a second one, then you get an actual confirmation where people got to sit and pay attention. The problem is, it's very hard to get a channeler where you're going to get that. Most of the channelers that I've talked to have not taken up the opportunity to do the test. And you need a second one to verify the first test. And then it's basically revolutionary if you can confirm that there is a DNA change, because as you would know, modern science will say there's absolutely going to be no change. I mean, it's the same person that's going to be, there's going to be no change. So I think that's significant. And I think that's the question that I asked and what Desta brought up. Is there anything else you want to ask, Desta?
No, everything's perfect.
Okay.
You're perfect.
Beautiful. I want to thank Debz and also the STAR teachers for the enlightenment and the information that we've gotten today. And hopefully we can do this again. I'm sure I'm going to get some questions for people. I've actually, before, I didn't really get any, but I said to people, I've got this opportunity. Is there any questions you want to ask? So maybe we can do it another time, and we can provide more enlightenment for the people. And maybe we can even do some sort of DNA thing where we can sort of really, if this turns out, it really revolutionize the world, where people realize it's not a nuts and bolts world. It is something completely different, and really revolutionize the fact that what we're talking about here is actually really going on.
Absolutely. And we are all at your service at any time. That's what we're here to do. That's what she knows she is here to do. And yeah, you can't have an empirical study with one subject. So
beautiful.
yes.
Is there any links that you want to provide that in case people want to contact you or do sessions with you or ask questions or whatever?
Yeah, this is, I'm back. I don't know what we're doing, but I heard the question about the links. People can connect with me to, connect privately with the Star Teachers or to do anything that I do. I have a big website. It's debzshakti.com, DEBZSHAKTI.com, and all of my information and stuff's on there. Again, the event that we're all working so hard on, the Woodstock of ET Worldwide Contact event, that is best to, you can do it through my website, which has the links for everybody else, which is etletstalk.com/Woodstock-ET-contact/ I think that's their webpage. But Facebook's super easy, Woodstock of ET Contact group and Woodstock of ET Contact live event. Those are all things, and I can send you links, Grant, if you want to, or Desta, to put up. So, and there are a lot of resources on both of our sites that help people to understand how to get into the meditative state, get into the love state. And like I said, and on my media, there's also, and probably on ET Let's Talk too, and on the Facebook pages, the teachers have been doing transmissions, and they keep building. They were doing them like once a month, then once every 2 weeks. Now it's like once a week or more. And I've been putting them on YouTube. So I have a YouTube channel that's linked on the website too, I believe, but it's also in my media section on my website. People can get information and education by the teachers by looking at those videos. There will be more. There's probably going to be another transmission tomorrow or Monday. So I'll let you know when that happens. And, if you want to link that too, that's fine. But those 3 live Zooms, they literally said they were going to take over the Zoom. I'll open it, and then they're just going to take over and facilitate these big live group coherency and activation upgrade sessions on the weekend of September 20th through the 22nd for that event. And hopefully our plan, at least what the teachers tell me, is they're going to help us build a conditioned space around the earth where everybody comes into coherency, or for the most part they do, and we start the ascension process in real time, big time, like fast. So
beautiful.
Thank you so much for helping us get the word out. I appreciate it so much.
We appreciate it. We appreciate your help. And Desta and I will probably be in Toronto at the time at a conference. So if you're doing one Friday night, I think they have an open thing where this is actually a topic of conversation. And they have some event there, but we can maybe link this in there as well. But
awesome.
I really appreciate what you're doing and what the Star Teachers are doing. And let's do this again sometime. And we'll see you later on, I guess, today at the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And is wonderful. And one last question: you were at the event in Wisconsin. Are you in Michigan with Kim?
I wish.
Marcel,
no, I live in Kansas City, actually. So.
You're in Kansas City. You're just directly south of us, 720 miles.
I am. I'm right straight south of you. I looked at Winnipeg this morning. I'm like, that is a direct line. So, yes, but no, I wish I could be up there for their next little event, which is, the end of September. I deeply love. They're just my soul family. Those people, and I have a lot of love for. Now, really, everybody. I'm now becoming close with the people in your Mount Shasta group, and some that I didn't know before. I'm really enjoying it all. So our family's growing.
Wonderful, beautiful.
Thank
we
you.
come down there quite often. Maybe we'll stop and say hi or whatever. We sometimes go to the Eureka Springs event there. So
Oh, yes.
we come right through
yes.
Kansas City. So
Yes.
wonderful.
We'd be happy to host a contact event for you to come to. Our group is extremely prolific with quality contact. It's a very diverse group. It's been together for about 3 years, maybe 3.5 years. And we've built a conditioned space that we have great contact. So I think you would enjoy it.
Wow,
So,
that sounds exciting.
Yeah. So
Okay.
thanks.
Thank you very much. And we will, namaste. We will talk to you in a few minutes. Thank you.
Right. Namaste in Lakesh. Bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye.